Before we get started, I wanted to let you know at the end of today's episode, we will be making a very special announcement. Make sure to watch until the very end for details on our first Legends of Lemp giveaway. So we bought a house, an 1879 mansion in desperate need of love with a legendary and unique history and a community to match. Today we meet Phil, our metal detectorist, and I cannot wait to show you what we found.
So the other person we're having come in today is Phil, and he's a metal detectorist. I don't know if that's the technical term for it, but that's what we're gonna call him. And I just sent him an email after talking with a friend who had had him out, who had Phil out at their property north of here. And he had emailed back almost immediately and seemed very excited to come out, and he wanted to come the next day. I don't have a ton of expectations for what we may or may not find. We have a rumor that there used to be a hoarder that lived here who didn't trust banks. So I think the coolest thing we could probably find is maybe a big stash of cash somewhere to help fund the renovations of this house. I think the worst thing would be that this gentleman will have gotten here and find nothing, and that he'll feel like he wasted his day standing out in the 90 to 100 degree heat, and it's not worth his time, and he'll be really disappointed. I think another potential issue working with a historic property is that you find something that is incredibly historic, anthropologically wise, so I don't want to come upon anything that historians or anthropologists may want to have us halt all of our construction to look at. I kid, but not really. I really hope we don't find any buried bodies in the yard, because that would be an issue as well. But it would be interesting. I just don't want to stop construction for any of that. So that would probably be the worst thing, is that we have to stop construction because of some crazy investigation or whatnot.
Phil.
Hi, Matt.
Hey, thanks for coming.
You're welcome. Thank you for inviting me.
So Phil, tell us what you're doing here in our yard.
Well, I'm metal detecting on some fairly old property, and this is my second trip here. The first time I found some really amazing things, old tokens from a store. Today I've already found a number of things that are really interesting, a couple of wheat pennies and some other things. But in general, I just run my metal detector over the ground. If I get a beep and a number, that's where a target is. I can kind of zero in on it and approximate where that target is. This is called a pinpointer, and this does what this does, only it's really focused. So this will give me a general idea of where a target is. This will tell me just about exactly where a target is. So I already know, looking down, this is about where I had a signal. I turn the pinpointer on, and I can show you a sound here. Let me get one of the, well, I'll just put my keys down. In general, this will tell me where a target is, but this will tell me exactly where a target is. So if I turn it on, it gets louder as it gets closer. So I can even almost tell the depth of the target. Like that's right on it. Anywhere else it shuts off because there's no metal over there. So that's the job of a pinpointer, and they are almost a necessity in this hobby. I remember getting into metal detecting before they had these, and I'd spend 5 minutes digging a hole for a bottle cap because I couldn't find it really. I knew about where it was, but couldn't really tell exactly. So this has really saved a lot of time and effort and my back muscles.
So how often do you do this sort of thing, Phil?
Well, I've been doing it since 1992. I got a same brand Garrett metal detector. Back then, the technology wasn't anywhere near what we have today. And it took 6D batteries. The thing weighed about 12 pounds, which is a lot for one arm. This weighs about 2.5. So the differences are amazing, really. But in general, this is called a coil, and this is what sends a cone-sized signal into the ground. For this detector, it's probably maybe 12 inches or a little tiny bit more. But I can make it more accurate by saying, don't go so deep. Or if the ground's real hard, I'll just tell it to look 3 inches down. I don't want to dig any deeper than that. So there's actually a sort of a relationship between detectorists and their detectors.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, you can almost get personal about it sometimes because certain brands stand out that you've had for many years, and everybody has different brands. That's fine. It's like cars.
Yeah.
You know, everybody likes different cars.
Tell us some of the good stuff you found in the past. Any of the, what's your best thing you ever found in metal detecting?
Well, I don't know about best. I'll say the oldest is a 1795 British halfpenny, which is about that big around and about that thick. It's made out of brass, and oddly enough, it was in my next door neighbor's backyard. That's not Britain, so I don't know how it got there.
Interesting.
But that's the oldest thing I found. And my last count for finger rings was 248. Maybe a fourth of those are worth anything at all, really. Mm-hmm. But I'm thrilled that any ring that I find, it's a rare and always an amazing find.
Yeah, sure. And you found a few things here. You found some tokens that were part of the welfare, basically pre-state-run welfare. There were tokens that were handed out that you could go and you could get bread and you could get other necessities through the use of these tokens. So we found some of those. You found a nickel here from the 1850s?
I think it's a V nickel. Mm-hmm. Yes, I think it was the late 1850s.
Truly exciting finds. So you're going to finish up out here. The new part is we exposed all this that was covered with brick here. Mm-hmm. So you've got all this new stuff to hopefully a little bit of new stuff that you can hit that you haven't already hit, because I know you hit some of this already.
I've worked my way from the gate back there up here.
Perfect. So you've hit some new territory.
Yeah.
And then the basement, which is exciting. Yes. And I got a new light rig, so you should be able to see what you're doing down there.
Great.
So we're going to look forward to this, do your thing, and look at what you find.
Okay.
Thank you, Phil.
Thank you, Matt, again for the opportunity. It's been two great experiences.
Well, it's our honor and pleasure. Thank you, Phil.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Phil, what'd you find?
Well, I did find some interesting things. Some were a few inches under the ground, some were almost on the surface, but let's go take a look.
All right, let's go.
I can't say for sure that I know what all these things are. That's part of a pocket watch.
Is a watch movement, people.
Yep. Yes, it is.
This is a watch movement, and we are going to find out. It's not a. It might be pocket watch, but it could actually be wristwatch too. Mm-hmm. This is interesting.
That was not too far from the tree.
It's brass, or there's definitely copper on it and brass. Perhaps a bronze there. It's no steel. The balance wheel does not have the drilled weights into it, meaning it's likely a bit more modern than, say, 1800s. I would say this could be even a mid 20th century watch, perhaps. But I'll need to do some research on it.
And we'll get it cleaned up too.
Yeah, we got to clean this up. That's so exciting. I love that kind of stuff. Okay, so welcome to Mansard Media's office, and we've got two cameras set up here. One of the cameras is looking at the screen that we're presenting to as we talk through these finds of the metal detectorist, Phil. And one of the cameras is showing, I think, some action of the salon, the very active salon that is indicative of how incredibly interesting Cherokee Street is, because what time is it? It's 8:30 in the evening and they're going like gangbusters, still cutting hair, and it's great. So that's Cherokee Street for you, going all the time, always something to do. Come down, get your hair cut. Okay, so phone off. We good?
No.
Okay.
Okay.
Great.
It was
Great.
Caleb. It was Caleb.
Oh, it's Caleb.
Calling about the door.
Caleb, please stop calling us. We're in the middle of filming.
So sorry.
We really appreciate you though, because you're doing some awesome stuff with our door. Okay, so I'm joined here with Nicki, our resident designer, project manager, producer. Okay, so we're going to review the finds that Phil came up with on doing the metal detecting. Here on the table are some of the finds. Phil has some of them himself. He's still cleaning them up, but he sent us pictures of everything. And Phil worked for a museum, so the pictures he sent are museum level, museum grade. He's using a really great camera and really great lighting on a very stark background, which is helpful. So we'll share those as we talk through them, but Nicki and I have been doing some research on every single thing that Phil sent us. And I think we have some pretty exciting things to share. What do you think?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I think there's some things in here that we certainly didn't expect to find, but we're pleasantly surprised to find. And then through that and through the history, we're also finding out more things about St. Louis, as well as more things about the Vahlkamp House. So I can't wait to reveal all of the juicy details with everybody.
Yeah, we didn't find $30,000 in gold.
Did not find gold this time
I'm
around.
gonna ruin it for, we're not even gonna hold that to the end. We're telling you we didn't find $30,000 in gold, but we did find some cool stuff, so let's get going here. So we're gonna go from what we kind of feel is least interesting to most, or most common, perhaps.
Yeah, things that are,
Yeah, most common.
Yeah.
Okay. So wheat pennies galore. These are just three of, I believe he found 10, 15 wheat pennies.
Yeah.
Spanning from, I believe, the 40s through almost the 58. So there's a nice little segment of the wheat pennies that he found. What's there to say about wheat pennies? Wheat pennies were total copper. They were totally copper.
Oh yeah, weren't most pennies until 1982 totally copper?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
This is way after the wheat pennies really stopped being copper.
I could be wrong. I could be wrong on the date, but I feel like in college I tried dyeing natural fibers by using copper.
No, I know you're right. You know how I know you're right, because my dad, when that conversion happened, he had a box of pennies that he got in 1982 and saved them because they were all copper. It was like, they were all going away.
Right.
So I proceeded to use them all with my slingshot because they curved nicely. You shut up. I feel so bad, Dad. I'm sorry. Anyway, that's where your marble collection went too, by the way.
Anyway.
Okay, so we found a bunch of wheat pennies. Interesting, sort of. Not very rare. Next, interesting find. So on Cherokee Street, we were known for our arcades and Nickelodeons. Yeah, so like if you go down and you read Nene Harris's plaques on the buildings, you'll see like 3 or 4 arcades and Nickelodeons. This is a common, and I did do quite a bit of research. Well, I mean, lots of reverse image lookups. I found this specific token for sale on a Canadian website, and it was for sale from Canada. So these things went everywhere, at least in North America, and they were just used as a miscellaneous token. So you can imagine maybe perhaps an arcade on Cherokee Street using these tokens as a way to use them to get access to games and play games. I really think that's probably what it was. We will never know. It's too common. It's too, there's no markings on it. There's no indication of what it was used for, but we do know it's a token. So, all right, next.
Next one's the shield nickel.
Oh, this is getting good here. So, Phil uncovered a shield nickel. It was an 1882 shield nickel. So, we speculate this fell out of Vahlkamp's pocket.
It could have. I mean, it's from, Vahlkamp had lived there maybe 2 years at that time. It is the oldest coin that we have found, which would make sense because 1882 would have been right at the early days. Vahlkamp would have been in his late 30s, I want to say, and could have easily slipped out of his pocket. One of the numerous children he had running around there.
But this was worth $1.50 in today's money when this was dropped. So when this was dropped, it was like dropping $1.45. Minted in 1882, likely handled by Vahlkamp or family member. Issued the shield nickel was issued from 1866 to 1883. So it had quite a run. It was the first nickel to use copper nickel alloy. So the same alloy that our today's nickels are used, as if I'm holding up imagine a nickel here, a normal one, today's nickel. Now, this shield nickel made of the same stuff. The nickel was designed by James B. Longacre, and it was meant to symbolize the strength of a united America post-Civil War. So you can see that kind of in the design, right? You got a 5 wreathed by stars indicating, I'm sure, the Union. Yeah. And the problem, so this one, as with almost everything post-Civil War, was tainted with politics.
Oh, well, yeah.
Because that was chaotic, right? So Joseph Wharton, the industrialist Joseph Wharton, advocated for the coins containing nickel to contain nickel because he had some significant financial interests at the time in nickel. Anyway, Joseph Wharton he was a nickel baron at the time. He had a lot of money. He was doing a lot of stuff, and he had a corner on the nickel market. Convinces Congress to go with a nickel alloy for the nickel. Right? So anyway, it was interesting, and Wharton sold a bunch of metal to the government. Now, how many kids we figure came through this house over the years?
So, I mean, I don't want to throw out a large number, but in all honesty, I would say it's probably at least 50.
So the reason I bring it up is I have up on our screen here one of the children's toys that we found, and I think it's really fun. It's a cap gun handle from the 50s. So we hit up Lola. I think it's Lola I'm messaging. Lola, if I'm not messaging you, I'm messaging somebody that seems to answer questions.
We are terribly sorry.
So she said, "Oh yeah, my brother. She grew up in the '50s in there, and these are pictures from her, of her with her."
Well, that one's 66. That top one is October of '66, and that's her holding the youngest sister, I want to say.
Yeah. So look how tiny this thing is, though.
Well, here, let's show it in a regular size person.
Yeah. You're right.
So I'm average. Hold on, here we go. The handle of it's this big.
It's tiny.
This is probably not even 2 inches long.
Right.
It's about 1 3/4 inches long.
Anyway, learned a bunch about this gun. It's a little tiny single shot cap gun. So the 50, so this was made by a company named Hubley or Hubley, probably Hubley. And I think it's just so beautiful. It's indicative of the many children who played in this yard. And we've been contacted by many of them. So, and they sent us these pictures. Anyway, pictures came through and they sent me of the front of the house. So look at this picture. So like, look, I believe this is 62 on the bottom. And then above is 66. So 62, you can see that fence along the front. It's in great shape.
Matt received the permits for the fence that's in the back and on the side of the house, I think, from 1993. So we know some of the wood fence, but that's about when there used to be an old brick shed or a brick building out in the back there. And so we have that had been vandalized, it had been broken into, burglarized, and also arsoned. Burnt. It was.
The thing had been through some stuff.
It had a very rough night.
Yeah.
And so they had to tear it down, but it says on the plans where it used to be. And so it's interesting to see that the concrete wall that's still currently at the residence was in this photo in '62. So
there it is. That's enough about a cap gun because that's all we know about this cap gun. Let's go to
the previous
bread
one.
tokens.
So I did a lot of research on this one. It's a little bread token, and it has printed on there the Henry Von Rohr, who they would have printed the bakery. This one's a bread token. Other companies or other businesses would just do like, here's 5 cents off something. So there are saloons that used to hand these out as well. Matt found that these were given out kind of in lieu of coupons. So when you would get you know how you get like the Bed Bath & Beyond 20% off coupon every time you come in, this is come back and here you get...
With your change, you would get a token.
Right.
That token was good for a loaf of bread. You come back to that baker, you get a loaf of bread for free,
right.
And then just keep coming. I hope you'd buy some muffins or whatever. I think.
Exactly. And so they would have to put on there the business's name so you knew where you had to bring it back to and they could verify that it was for them. On the back, though, it's really interesting where it has this name banner, and then there's an address and it's St. Louis. So I think a lot of these, they were probably blank and they were manufactured in St. Louis and then shipped out throughout the city. And this is really interesting too, because Phil, actually a friend of his, found a token that was for the address for here on Cherokee. But when Matt had Phil come and scan the property here at Cherokee, because we know that there was a house that was built in the rear before 1876. And when he saw the address, he said, a friend of mine found a token for the saloon that used to be here. But I did pull up some information on that baker. I have a 1920 census of him of Henry Von Rohr, working for another baker. That same year and a few years before that, the baker was William A. Hoffman. And in 1920, Henry Von Rohr was living, I assume, above the bakery at 6650 Gravois. So the building, I do believe, is still there. It has a different facade, but I think it's still there. And then in 1930, Henry Von Rohr still lists himself as a baker, but he is listed living in a different address, and that is this house that's down here.
Wow.
4027 Quincy Street. It still exists.
Yeah.
And it's a single family residence, so it's not like he was living above the bakery anymore. So my best guess is in that 10 years, he went from helping run someone else's bakery to opening up and running his own bakery and having his own tokens.
That's great.
So. The last one I think is the most interesting.
Well then, does that mean I get to talk about the most exciting
You
thing ever?
can take the show from here, sir.
Oh my goodness. I don't know if anybody that knows me knows that I love watches. And today I'm sporting the newly minted Legends of Lemp automatic chronometer that we will be giving away. And it's just because I had this actually made because I love watches, and it's indicative of how much I adore the intricate nature of watches, the machine aspect of it, but also the art and the fact that it's the closest thing that you can get to the melding of art and function that you can wear. So I love art watches. I'm gonna stop opining about watches, but just trying to lay it out for you how much I love them. And guess what we found in the yard? Oh my goodness, we found a watch movement, and I love watches so much, and I got to do some research on this watch movement that we found.
We were a little bummed we didn't get his full reaction on video, but it was pretty much cartoonish.
You didn't get that?
On how low your jaw went and how big your eyes got.
Well, when this came out of the ground, I was ecstatic because I love the idea of being able to research this, and I was kind of hopeful that this would be Vahlkamp's pocket watch, long lost pocket watch. The answer is this is definitely not Vahlkamp's pocket watch.
No, I can't wait to talk about the documentary because their pocket watches do show up.
Here's what I've learned about this watch movement, and I've got a story for you. I've got a story that's likely true. A lady who was likely married to one of the tenants, the men who were laborers, was probably the owner of this watch. How do I know that? This is a blue-collar worker's watch because of the movement. It has very few jewels in it, 2 jewels. It's a smooth balance wheel, which indicates, lower. So if you know anything about watches, which I'm going to assume most people don't, there's a thing that goes back and forth, and it's this part here. And I guess we'll have the post-production have to point it out, but it's the brass circular wheel.
That green wheel.
That green wheel, and you can see a jewel, a red jewel right there in the middle. That's a ruby, and it balances on that ruby and it spins back and forth, and it uses a hairspring to make it go back and forth. And that on expensive watches, especially in the time frame that we're talking about, which is late 1800s, early 1900s, more likely early 1900s, would have had little tiny brass weights added to the outside to make it just perfect. If it was made by a jeweler or somebody like this. But this is a mass-produced item, and it's got a different kind of watch movement in it. Unsigned, cheap Swiss movement. Cheap, honestly, it was, from around 1900. The smooth balance wheel, which I remarked in the video, if we do watch the video, I remarked this could be more modern, because modern watches like this have smooth balance wheels. But it doesn't indicate it's modern. It indicates that it's lower quality. This is also a cheap cylinder escapement, and you can watch, well, hopefully we can link to some of these things, but we've got some research that we did about what a cylinder escapement means. I can't explain it, you'd have to go see it. But it's very obvious how it's much cheaper. It's basically like a rod, and instead of, just go watch the video.
Look it up. You got Google.
You don't need me to go on that. So anyway, cheaper cylinder escapement. Very few jewels, so that red, those little red shiny things are rubies. They are what the little tiny wheels balance on. You have a tiny amount of oil in there, and it makes it almost have zero friction. And the point is to reduce friction in a watch because that increases the accuracy. The more jewels you have, the less friction you have, the more accurate it should be, theoretically, right? If it's all balanced right. It's made out of brass, a little bit of copper there on the bridge here. And That's what we know, but here's the story. Likely owned by a blue-collar worker's wife, it's almost certainly a lady's watch, given the size of the movement. I commented it's probably a wristwatch. No, it's not a wristwatch. It's just a lady's pocket watch. We have records of at least 2 laborers in the early 1900. One was a carpenter and one was a hardware salesman. So let's imagine it's their, one of them, their wives had this pocket watch. And the theory is that somebody had a case, this pocket watch was in a case. And we have pictures of a pocket watch that's been for auction that is likely what this looked like. And it's gold filled, plated likely with, either gold or nickel or something that makes it very shiny. And the movement in it, this movement, died. And so they probably pulled the movement out, gave it to the kids. Kids go out in the yard, they play with it. The rest is history. That's how we find it.
So in the census that we pulled in 1900, which we guesstimate that Vahlkamp moved out maybe the year before.
Yeah.
He lists his address as different. So there are 2 families that are living at the Vahlkamp House. You have Hiram Anderson with his wife and his daughter, who is 24 years old. So Hiram Anderson is 62. I do believe his wife is 63. And he is a ship's carpenter.
I can imagine Hiram saying, I am not intimidated by pulling a watch movement out of my wife's watch. I'm going to pull it out, and then we're going to go to the jeweler. We're going to have him put one in, but I'm not going to pay him to get one out.
Right. And then their daughter, Cora, who is 24. And then you have a niece who's 27, who is also living there as well. And then you have this other family, Frederick Weber, with his wife, and their 7 children. So he lives there with his 7 children, who are between, again, Frederick is 51, his wife is 41, and then children are aged 22 to 3. Quite a span.
Wait,
22, 20,
I
18,
feel like physically
15,
that's
12,
not
10, and then 3. They've been married for 23 years.
On that note, we have probably talked enough about the finds. Thank you for joining us. I am so glad we could share these interesting things that are coming out from Phil's escapades with his detector in the yard.
Yeah.
We'll keep coming back. Phil's going to keep coming back. This is not the
done.
end. And we will carry everything on this channel. So
Yep.
Thank you, Nicki.
Thank you.
And signing off for now. Thanks again for watching. To celebrate our 1,400th new subscriber in the first 2 months, we've decided to do a giveaway. First, our limited edition first run Legends of Lemp t-shirts and a very limited set of automatic watches. 2 dive watches and 2 smaller 36mm oyster style watches. These watches are custom made for us with our very stylish logo on them, on the face, and then etched into the metal of the crown where you wind them. These are super nice watches. Take it from a watch guy, and I am very much a watch guy. I love watches, and one of my dreams has been to work with a manufacturer to select the highest specs and then do a custom branding of a watch. And I needed a reason to do it. And finding the watch movement in the metal detecting episode was the reason that I got to do this giveaway. And so we came up with this idea as a team that since we found this watch movement, that we would put together some very special watches and give them to our loyal viewers. So these are all stainless steel construction, automatic movements. We're not talking cheap quartz here. These things sweep, Japanese automatic movements. Ceramic bezel on the dive watch, so high-end stuff. We only made 2 of the 36mm ones, so the oyster style. We only made 2 of those, and then we made 4 of the dive watches, and JD wears 1, I wear 1, and then we're giving away the other 2. So highly rare, very nice watches, best specs, and I think you're gonna the ones that win it are gonna love these things. and I'm very excited to give them away. So we will be announcing our first winner on next week's episode, our Doors episode featuring Caleb Higgins from the Second Empire. And we will randomly choose from our channel subscribers who have liked this video. So you have to like it and subscribe, because it really does help us. It helps drive the algorithms on YouTube, and it gets us more viewers, which is the whole point of this. So please like and subscribe. We'll choose randomly from those who have done so, and we will send you a watch that is custom made for Legends of Lemp. So like and subscribe, and we'll see you next week. Thank you very much.